Welcome back into the Bettor Half Hour. If you know this show, we're always standing, but we're sitting because we got an in-studio special guest. You saw him on the show last week. He's back with us now. Dan Lust. He is an attorney and sports law professor at New York Law. Dan, great to be with you, my friend. Feeling comfortable?
Feeling comfortable. We got March Madness upon us, and I'm ready to dig into all things sports law.
All right, so let's talk about the MLB, the finally coming together moment. What exactly, from a legal perspective, happened between the players and the union?
Yeah, so we'll say it was a little bit of playing poker, right? Rob Manfred said the deadline to come to a deal is February 28th, and then he said March 1st, if we can't get a deal, we're going to cancel games. And then that deadline came and went, and all of a sudden, Alex, we're sitting here today, and there are still 162 games. So a little bit of playing poker. I think Manfred kept saying, hey, we're going to cancel games. But at the end of the day, when you come to terms on a deal like that, you have to have some type of time pressure. So I think we really were getting toward the edge of canceled games, having like 140. But at the end of the day, the players wanted to get a deal done. So I think the lawyers just said, you know what, I think it's time. We both caved a sufficient amount. Let's get this deal done.
And as far as compromise goes on both sides, what would you say happened on both camps, and did anyone get the better end of the stick?
You know, I'm going to say the players probably got the better end of the stick. Honestly, the players at the end of the day were trying to get a larger piece of that pie. Revenue has been going up and up and up. I think it's about 80% over the last 5 years, yet player salaries have been going down. So what did the players do? They raised the ceiling, they raised the competitive balance tax, and they raised the floor, the minimum salary. So I think in that sense, on a large level, those are the two main deal points. Certainly, I think they wanted to give the owners a harder time on competitive balance tax, but they're not going to be so annoyed at the end of the day on that. So I think if you had to pick, players probably won out. They fixed some competitive balance issues. They fixed some tanking issues. And now we'll see what happens with this international draft. I think that's the next thing players are looking forward towards. But I think overall, I'm going to say the players got the better end of the deal.
And as far as the luxury tax goes, that is going to be changed, as well as the first overall pick moving forward. How do you think that affects the strategy with the general management, and as well as just overall teams approaching those two particular changes?
Right. I mean, I think tanking is a big problem in sports, right? You can look around the landscape, and our Knicks, right, in New York, Zion Williamson was supposed to be the first pick to the Knicks. They had the worst record that particular year. And then again, Zion Williamson is not playing in Madison Square Garden. So I think that's maybe tanking solving itself a little bit. The way baseball is going to work out, if you are not a playoff team, you're going to have a chance of getting that top pick. It's not automatically going to go to the team with the worst record. So I think that's a big win for players. They're going to have teams spending money. The Pittsburgh Pirates right now have a $50 million salaries, and the Dodgers, right, are closer to $200 million. So I think something like that is going to help the players. It's going to force teams to spend money because they're not automatically going to walk into the first overall pick.
I know you mentioned the players potentially got a little bit of an edge. Do you feel like the owners got anything they wanted as well, or do you think it mainly lent the kind of beneficiary to all things players?
Well, put it this way, right? Revenue is going up like 80%. I think the owners have made like tens of billions of dollars, and that money is not going directly into a salary floor. It's really just impacting the potential competitive balance tax. That doesn't require the teams to spend up to that balance tax, and there's still no floor. So if owners really want to, they can say, great, we could spend up to the tax, but we're not going to. So I think the owners are going to be happy. They're still pocketing that difference, which is billions, so they can claim poverty all they want. The owners don't have to spend up to that number. So certainly at the end of the players, I think, are going to be happy that they got more of that pie, but the owners are still pocketing a ton of money. So I think the owners will privately view it as a win, but players are still chipping away at that pie.
All right, Dan, let's switch to the NFL. I know you've been covering the Deshaun Watson thing rather closely. So he apparently faces no criminal charges. How do you think that affects teams and phone calls to the Texans? And then from a betting perspective, what kind of teams are out there that are maybe the front runners?
Yeah, I think anyone that tells you today that there's clarity on Deshaun Watson doesn't know what they're talking about, honestly. There's still the NFL suspension looming. There's still 22 civil cases looming. And let's not forget, there is the off chance that criminal charges could still result. 10 criminal complaints were filed in this case, and let's not forget, again, 22 women sued him. So, I mean, listen, it's a tough topic to talk about, but are 22 women lying and making this thing up, or did they just not get an indictment from the grand jury? So there's a difference between what happened in court on Friday and the truth. We don't necessarily know what exactly happened. But Alex, you asked, like, what's happening with NFL teams? they're calling. I think as of today, the Saints and the Panthers have made actual offers to the Texans. I know Howie Roseman, GM of the Eagles, had called Deshaun Watson's camp before the grand jury, so there are teams making their inquiries. From a betting perspective, we really got to look at the teams that need quarterbacks, right? So that's going to be the Saints. It's going to be the Panthers. It's going to be the Seahawks. It's going to be the Colts, right? So if you're looking to try to hit one of these long futures, I don't mind putting a bet on one of those guys. As we saw with Tampa, right, with Tom Brady, those guys went from 22-1 to plus 750 overnight with one quarterback. Same thing with the Broncos. They were 2,400, and then they got Russell Wilson. So if you're looking for a betting perspective, you know, not to say if I'm the general manager of a team, I'm probably not making the trade. But in the NFL, right, talent wins out. Ben Roethlisberger got a second shot. Mike Vick got a second shot. Deshaun Watson will be playing for a new team. I feel very confident in that in 2022. It's a matter of who, and if you're a bettor, nailing that team. So you can look across the board, 5, 6, 7 teams need a quarterback, and someone's going to strike very big on those odds.
And speaking of the civil cases, there could be some women that still step up and come at him from a legal point. Do you feel like there's going to be a suspension? Is that completely contingent on whether more women come and make this a continuation and prolonged situation? Or do you feel like this is more closer to wrapping up? And then from the NFL's perspective, what would you envision Goodell doing?
Right. I mean, yes and no, right? Ben Roethlisberger declined on the DA, right? And he still got 6 games. Ezekiel Elliott also got 6 games. So you could be looking at 6 games for Watson. But then again, remember, there are 20-plus accusers here. So Goodell could turn around and give a much bigger suspension than that. So again, that's why I say that we're not really clear on what's going to happen. And is Howie Roseman of the Eagles going to make a trade? Right? Are the Panthers going to make a trade when Watson might get suspended for the whole year? I'm not sure, but it's not stopping teams from making the call. So the civil case are still ongoing. But then again, remember, criminal charges are not required for a suspension. So suspension very much could be happening here, and it could be an unprecedented one. Or it could be nothing, right? We don't know yet. So, you know, I guess time will tell. Just keep in mind, Antonio Brown played with a civil sexual assault case looming, right, last year. He's done it before. It's possible. I actually think that's what's going to happen with Watson next year.
Dan, appreciate you coming on as always. Ton of value. Hope everyone enjoyed all of his breakdowns on MLB and all things Deshaun Watson. Make sure to check out his podcast, Conduct Detrimental. When I return, we're starting to break down the March Madness tournament. We're starting out in the West. Don't go anywhere here on the Bettor Half Hour.